Hello, viewers, and welcome back to the Sports Lovers Podcast. I'm your host, Brock Marucci, and with me is my great co-host, Hunter Nisley. Hunter, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, Mr. Brock, so happy to be back here, sir. Really looking forward to this episode. I even got my Yeezys on tonight, so I'm really ready to go for this.
Yeah, yes, sir. I also dressed a little nicer with my Penn State button up here.
You're looking good, sir.
Thank you. You're looking great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So we've been away for a little bit. We've had some things we've had to deal with, but we're back on the chase here, as they say, back on the podcasting. And so for the next few episodes, Sports Lovers Podcast, we're going to be doing a little bit of older news that we might have missed, and then mixing it with some more current news. And with that being said, Nisley, are you ready for this episode?
Yes, sir. I'm very excited, sir. I'm ready to get it going.
Okay, our first bit of older news we kind of missed was Aaron Rodgers. It's officially a New York Jet. And Nisley, I want you to give me, what are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers being a Jet?
What are my thoughts on Aaron Rodgers being a New York Jet? It's tough because, of course, Aaron Rodgers, arguably maybe the most talented quarterback that's ever played in the NFL. This past season, though, was one of his worst by his standards in a long time. He had his worst passer rating in his career, actually, this past year, at least as a starter. But it still wasn't a terrible year. You know, the Packers were still in contention at the end of the year. Of course, lost to Detroit last game of the season. But now he's coming to a New York Jets team, which is kind of a wild card. They went 7-10 last year. The Jets were pretty bad offensively. They just really inefficient running the ball, passing the ball. Their offensive line was not very good, and it may not be very good this year too. A lot of injuries, a lot of question marks on that offensive line, which is going to be a little bit different for a guy like Aaron Rodgers. The Packers, year in and year out, pretty consistently have had a very good offensive line for him there in Green Bay. So it's going to be very interesting. I think he's going to help that offense quite a bit. You know, going from Zach Wilson and Mike White and Joe Flacco to Aaron Rodgers is quite the glow up for the New York Jets. So their division is interesting too, and you know, of course, the Bills are very good, probably going to continue to be very good. But after that, the Dolphins are kind of a question mark with Tua. The Patriots, who knows? You don't know. Is Mac Jones going to be the guy? Is he not? Is Bailey Zappi going to be the guy? You never know. And the Jets have talent, very good defense, very young defense. You know, Sauce Gardner over there in New York playing really well. So my gut tells me that it's going to go at least okay. I don't think they're going to be bad, but Rodgers is 39 years old. He's going to turn 40 before the season ends. He turns 40, I think, in December. So it's either going to, I think it's either going to go really well or it's going to crash and burn, like, and just be as bad as possible. What do you think, Mr. Brock?
So my first thought when this happened, I was like, is this really a good idea? You know, no offense to Aaron Rodgers, but if you ask me, he was a guy that's not 100% in on playing football over the past few years. We've seen, you know, not showing up to training camp, not showing up to the OTAs, not exactly the best guy with rookies. You know, in the off season, he's in another country doing ayahuasca. Very unique guy. And I just got the feeling like, just retire as a Packers legend. You know, like that's what I think he should have done. Now, if he has an incredible season with the Jets and they win the Super Bowl, then hey, shame on me, but I'm willing to take that risk. So when they made that deal, I was kind of like, and also like, you know, I thought he would try to go to maybe a team with like a warmer climate. You know, we saw Tom Brady go to Tampa, and he said that changed his whole outlook. He loved that warm weather. So, I mean, it's not that you can just pick whatever team you want to go to, but, you know, he had all the cards But, more recently we saw Aaron Rodgers showing up to the OTAs, being more involved with the team. So, maybe a change of scenery um, really helped him out, allowed him to remember more about the game that he liked and being more involved. But also a little bit too, how do I say this? Like, he really wanted to be in control of the Packers and really wanted his guys and his, who he wanted to play with. And they did that, and it still didn't work out. So I know he did. I know he did tweak his ankle recently. I don't think it's anything too serious, but ultimately, right now, it looks good for the Jets, and I think the Jets fans have a lot to be excited about, and I think they should be excited. But I'm wondering if is this thing going to be dead on arrival? Like, if they start the season like 1-4 or something, what like is the whole thing going to tumble down? Like, how long is Rodgers even going to want to play there or stay there? Like, it just seems like they've got some weapons. I think they've got some talent, but well, I was gonna say like, could they really win it in their first year? But Tom Brady did. Now, Aaron Rodgers is not quite Tom Brady, but uh, so hopefully, I mean, hey, I'm happy for the Jets fans though. I think they should be happy, and I don't know. I guess as the Jets organization, kind of feel like maybe you almost had to do it. Like, you had to do something for this franchise.
Yeah, I agree with you there. As for Jets fans, there's at least some optimism. Like, you've got at least you don't have Zach Wilson. I mean, you still have Zach Wilson, but at least he's not your starting quarterback. And this is probably the most excitement the Jets have had since some of those prime Mark Sanchez years, whenever the Jets were consistently getting to the playoffs, going to the AFC Championship. So it's, Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if I'd say he's been maybe a bit of a locker room cancer, but he hasn't necessarily been loved. But his teammates that do like him, that do love him, are really, ride or die with him as well. So it's going to be really interesting. I like you mentioned about what happens if the Jets do start 1-4. We've seen the Packers in previous years get off to a couple of rough starts, and Rodgers would just be like, "Hey, relax, we're going to be fine." And most of the time, he was right; things were fine. But this is a new team, new city, maybe a new Aaron Rodgers. Who knows what personality you're getting week by week or month by month with him. So I'm excited to watch it, though. I mean, I think it's going to be fun, at least in the beginning. And it'd be fun if the Jets do play relatively well to, maybe see some more meaningful games from Aaron Rodgers this late in his career.
Yeah, and it is. It is. You mentioned this earlier though. Like, Bills are looking pretty good. I think. I think Miami's looking good personally. And you're not sure with the Patriots, obviously, but so I think hopefully we have some more exciting games to come. And one last thing I had on the matter was I think it's nice that Aaron Rodgers. I can't remember the exact quote, but I know he said some nice parting words of like, hey, I like the people in the organization. Best of luck to the Packers. I'm glad it didn't kind of spiral into this whole he said this and I didn't say this. And the one thing that did kind of annoy me was he was like, you have to talk to my face. If it's not FaceTime or in person, that's the only way I talk. And I was thinking kind of like, Aaron, to be fair, you haven't been the most reachable guy. Just recently you were in a dark room for like 3 days. So I don't know. I'm glad though that it didn't go any further than that. It was kind of just a few like, they just couldn't reach me, I guess. So,
Yeah.
but it should be an exciting year. Hopefully, it is an exciting year for the Jets. And I don't know. I just right now is like, is it? I don't think it's fair to be like Super Bowl or bust. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is that kind of guy.
Yeah, that's fair. Honestly, I feel like just at least in the organization's mind, if they can play competitive football right now, if they can win 10 games, that'd be a big success. So I think they just want to see better football out of that organization. Maybe build a little momentum, post Aaron Rodgers whenever that does happen.
Yeah, 100%. And hey, maybe Zach Wilson was quoted as saying, "I'm going to make his life a living hell in practice" or whatever. Uh, but Aaron seems to be willing to take on that challenge. So maybe, just maybe, Aaron Rodgers can give some good wisdom or some good teaching to Zach Wilson to help him
Hey, you never
in the
know.
future. Yeah, you never know.
Hey, maybe Zach Wilson invites Aaron Rodgers' mom to training camp or
Yeah,
something crazy. Maybe everybody's mom's coming to watch, and Zach Wilson's just rizzing it up over on the sidelines. Anything can happen.
anything can happen. All right, that's about all I had on Aaron Rodgers. Is there anything else you'd like to share, Nisley?
No, sir. I think I got all my takes out for the man.
Alrighty. So moving on to our next topic. I can't remember exactly when this was announced, but the Oakland Athletics are going to be moving to Las Vegas, and I gotta say, this is a tough blow for the city of Oakland. I know, we said on a podcast that the Oakland A's are going to be historically bad this year. Right now they're 12-46, worst record in the league. But really, when you think about Oakland, it's like the Raiders left, the Warriors left, and again, I know the A's aren't the most, we're not that popular, but now they're gone. It's like that's really got to be tough. And Naz, I just wanted to get what is your reaction to the A's leaving Oakland?
I mean, it's awful for Oakland, of course. Um, really, the only bright side I can think of is I do think it'll be cool to have a team in Las Vegas. Of course, they're going to be in a brand new stadium, and we've seen success with the Golden Knights in Las Vegas. So I would say the one positive is I think it'll be cool to have a team there, and hopefully the A's can be successful there. But everything else is just really it's sad and it's frustrating for people of Oakland, even just fans of the team, even if you're not in Oakland. Um, this ownership group or just the owner of the Oakland A's right now is pretty much forcing this to happen. They're we talked a while ago in one of our baseball podcasts about how this team was going to be historically bad, and they are historically bad. They're on pace to have one of, if not the worst record in Major League Baseball history. Um, although they did just take the series from the Braves, which is something. I believe it's their first series win of the year.
Hey, progress,
Yeah, progress. It's better than it's better than No, it's not better than anything. Really. Um, but just watching, there have been practically no renovations made to the Oakland Coliseum. There was a little bit of groundwork for having a waterfront stadium in Oakland for the baseball team, and from everything that we're aware of, that was kind of ready to go, ready to happen. The city was ready to fund it, and the owner was like, "No, I don't think so." He pulled out real late and said, "Hey, we're going to Las Vegas," and just he's forcing the team to just be a laughing stock of all of baseball history. This team is terrible. There's a couple bright spots. Estuary Ruiz is on there. I can never get the catcher's name correct. Shea Langeliers, I believe, is his name. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. He's a bit of a bright spot, I guess.
That's
There's not
better
a
than I
whole
could
lot
say
else.
it.
They're one of their young rookie pitchers, Mason Miller, might be out for the year, might not be out for the year. That was one bright spot for them. But just to see an owner pretty much purposely tank a team, not even just to get a better draft pick or anything like that. He just wants to leave, and part of me gets it, but at the same time, it's really unfortunate, and it's surprising that the MLB is just totally on board with moving them to Vegas, and you know, I it just sucks to see. It's really sad for Oakland A's fans and the people of Oakland.
Yeah, and I did not really watch much sports or baseball when the A's were more relevant. I know like some of the old heads will just they remember the A's as this like incredible like dynasty or almost just like this great team, and to see it kind of get to this point is you're really kind of shaking your head wondering what happened. And I've never been to Oakland, and I don't know exactly what it is, but they might be some of the more passionate fans like around the world. Like they love, like especially the Raiders. Like they loved the Raiders to death, to literal death. And you know, when I hear a team is moving, usually I assume, oh, that team isn't doing particularly well. They haven't been doing well for a while, which is true for the Athletics. But like the Warriors were doing really well. They pulled them out of Oracle Arena, which is a crime. I even kind of like, man, why did they do that? Like I'm not a huge fan of that. And the Raiders were just starting to get their comeback, and then they announced that they were moving, and that to me felt like a huge just like stab in the back to the fan base and the players. So yeah, it's just that's all you can kind of say now is just kind of look at this and just it's too bad. And look, A's games, not many people are going to A's games, but
yeah. Which I don't blame the fans.
No,
I mean when you're 12-46, it's hard to go.
Yeah, at that point, it's like you can find a better thing to do on a sunny day in Oakland or what have you. But yeah, that is tough. And hey, now people are going to watch Moneyball. Years from now, people will watch Moneyball and just, they'll be like, oh, is this team still there? It's like, not anymore.
No. And it's sad because, obviously Oakland and Billy Beane were the kind of the founders of Moneyball and that style of baseball and analytics based. And it's not like the A's haven't still had success with that, and it's not like they haven't still found good players. They had Matt Olson, they had Matt Chapman, they had Chris Bassett, they had Max Muncy, they had dudes, they had a lot of dudes, Marcus Simeon, Sean Manaea, they had all sorts of dudes, and this was only a handful of years ago, and they're just Sean Murphy just got traded last year, who's one of the best catchers in baseball, and now he's playing great in Atlanta. So it just the foundation is there for them to still stay and be a competitive baseball team because they've done it. They've done it for a long time. They created Moneyball. They pretty much created what the Tampa Bay Rays are right now and what the Cleveland Guardians are right now. That's most of that comes from Oakland, and it's gonna be weird. At least they're gonna hopefully keep their very, very nice uniforms when they move to Las Vegas because they cannot change those because those are just very nice, very classic, very iconic uniforms in baseball.
Yeah, those are nice. I like the colors are unique, I think. And I just recently I saw on Instagram a rough outlook of what the stadium or what the baseball field and all that will look like. I'm gonna be honest, looks really nice.
It does. It looks really cool.
Which the same thing. The Raiders got a really nice stadium, but still sad to see. But hang in there, Oakland. I'm sure some more luck will come your way here eventually.
Someday. I don't know what day that is, but
someday. Okay, and that's about all I had for the Oakland A's. Anything else, Nisley?
No, just rest in peace to Oakland and their fans and their sports teams, man. Rest in peace.
Alrighty, so that's all for our. That's like the older news we're catching up on. Now we're to get to some more current news. What couldn't be more current per se is a Mr. Scottie Pippen, who's for the past 2 years has just been trying his hardest to bring down the image of Michael Jordan. 2 years ago, he said that him and Jordan weren't really friends. They were just teammates. He would go on to call Phil Jackson a racist. He would go on to, bring up conspiracies that, Michael Jordan only did certain stuff for the cameras. More recently on the Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast. This is hosted by Stacey King, former Chicago Bull. He said that Michael Jordan was a terrible player and that there's no debate that LeBron James is the greatest player of all time. And Nisley, I just wanted to get what were your thoughts on what's been going on with Scottie Pippen?
Yeah, it's something, man. It's something. Obviously I can't speak for his relationship with Michael Jordan, anybody's relationship really with Michael Jordan. He certainly has his enemies, but he certainly has his friends and his admirers as well. Um, to me, at least, this just feels like Scottie Pippen trying to remain relevant within NBA basketball and just the world of basketball. Saying Michael Jordan was horrible before Pippen got there is just outrageous. Uh, of course, the Bulls didn't have a ton of team success before Pippen. There was still success; they still made the playoffs. Um, but obviously, Pippen coming was really that big second guy. But he went on to mention how once he got there, they played team basketball and things were different and all this stuff. And I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. Like Michael Jordan is a significantly better basketball player than Scottie Pippen. There are several players that could have filled the shoes of Scottie Pippen. He was a very good player, very great defender. I'd say an above average offensive player. Fit very well with that Chicago Bulls teams, with all their teams over the years. But it there are many guys that could have done what Scottie Pippen did. Scottie Pippen quit on his team more than once. He pretty much benched himself once when he didn't get the final shot, and he's it's annoying, man. I appreciate the him talking about so highly, talking so well of LeBron and all of his accomplishments, which I agree with. The longevity and just how great LeBron is, but we can't sit here and discount what Michael Jordan did in the 90s. He's won 6 championships. He's 6-0 in the NBA Finals. Nobody in the 90s could touch him. Absolutely nobody. As long as Michael Jordan was healthy, nobody was beating him, and pretty much nobody had a shot at doing that. And Scottie just seems to be very salty about those years. Maybe because he's not getting the love that MJ has continued to get for a long time. But to me, when I think of those Bulls, I don't think about Scottie Pippen. I think about arguably the greatest basketball player to ever live, and Michael Jordan. And I think about his success and his big plays, his game winners, and I don't think about Scottie Pippen. And maybe that pisses him off. I don't know, but to me, I don't care what Scottie Pippen has to say about it because he seems to just be holding a grudge and can't get over it 30 years later. So that's how I feel about the situation.
Yeah, I know everyone's allowed to have their own opinion, but some of the stuff he's saying is just flat out wrong. Like Michael Jordan was a horrible player. Like everyone's allowed to have their own opinion. That is not true. Now, I at first I was kind of I had a similar thought. I was like, Scotty's just a little upset over some maybe a bit of a lack of attention or just trying to stay relevant. At this point, I'm not angry. I'm more kind of like sad about the whole thing. Like, man, you had this incredible career, you won 6 championships with Jordan. Like, uh, I would love for him to sit down and just be smiling about it and talking just so well of the whole thing. Um, some of the stuff I still think is a little out there, like the idea of Michael Jordan manipulating the cameras. It's like, okay, dude, I don't know about that. Um, and now we're all, he said to other interviews, like, we're all looking at it from afar. He was in the practices, he was in the game, so he has a different perspective than we do. Uh, but a lot of the stuff I hear him say, like, maybe no one's really ever asked Scotty what he thinks per se. A lot of times, if you're asking, he's usually asked about like the Lakers or Kevin Durant or whoever. No one's ever, thought about, well, what does Scotty really think of Michael Jordan? And I'm sure, kind of being in that shadow, kind of being the Robin to Michael Jordan's Batman has not made him happy. But I mean, like, 2 years ago, Scottie Pippen, one of his sons died, and I think that's affected him pretty heavily. And I think there's certain things Scottie has wanted to get off his chest, but nobody is helping him or giving him more of like okay, you want to say Michael Jordan's a bad player. Maybe you could just say, oh, when I got to Chicago, Michael Jordan was a horrible player. All he did was do one-on-one. But after we worked together, we were able to get each other to play team basketball. Like, that would have been a little better thing to say, but right now he's just kind of seems like just keeps getting worse. Maybe like I said, no one's maybe telling him the right thing to say, like, convey your message a little better. And and there are a few times where he kind of like has been going back on his word. He's like, oh, I'm not trying to start trouble, it's all love. Like, no, dude, like, you're definitely trying to start trouble. And he even said, I rewatched one of the older interviews, and he said, like, this is before his memoir was coming out, and they're asking him on the Dan Patrick Show, like, I gotta believe there's something else that you're upset about that's in this book. And he goes, no, I'm not upset about stuff that happened in the 90s. I'm like, yes, you are. Like, so right now I'm more just like sad about the whole situation. I'm hopeful in the future that he can bury the hatchet with Michael Jordan and the coach, and we can have kind of a happy ending, because it just doesn't seem right that these guys should be, that Michael Jordan, and Phil Jackson should be at odds with each other.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like Scottie, maybe he needs therapy instead of a live interview to talk about this stuff. But I hope that maybe that relationship can heal a little bit or something. But it just, it's one thing to not like the guy, but it's another to just say he sucked before he was there, and he really wants more credit or something about those teams. And I think he rightfully gets a lot of credit for those teams. It's pretty well acknowledged that Michael didn't win a chip before Pippen, but he won 6 with him. So I don't know what all it is, but I think he has some things to figure out with himself. Some internal conflicts that he needs to resolve on his own, maybe.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's just some things he's been holding on to that haven't quite been coming out the right way. So hopeful. Personally, I'm hopeful that they can find a way to bury the hatchet and not kind of live with the regret of never being friends again and never talking. He also mentioned that he hasn't talked to Jordan in a while. That they'll say little things like, "How's your family doing?" but nothing too intense. So, yeah, just sad to see at this point, honestly.
Yeah, very sad.
Okay, that's all I had for Pippen. Anything else from you, Nisley?
No, just all hail the arguable GOAT, Michael Jordan.
Okay, moving on to our final topic. We're going to be recapping some of the NBA playoffs. And I don't know about you, Nisley, I think this playoffs has delivered 100%. Outside of a few lopsided series, I was really locked in. I'm still locked in. I mean, we're on the finals, but during the first round, I was just focusing on the NBA playoffs. I was really enjoying all of it. People were talking about the NFL draft, and I was like, oh yeah, that's something that happened.
Yeah, that happened.
But I was really just liking definitely really into the playoffs. How have you felt about this year's playoffs?
It's been a ton of fun, man. It's been a lot of fun series, especially me being a Miami Heat fan. It's certainly exciting for me. This was very unexpected. I was on here talking shit about the Miami Heat and that they were probably going to get swept by the Bucks. Things weren't going to go well, and things have gone really well. But it's been a ton of fun. It really feels like there's parity right now, and anything can happen. Of course, the Nuggets getting to their first finals ever. We had the Kings Warriors series in the first round, and then we got LeBron versus Steph again. We got Philly versus Boston, and the process versus Boston, a team that's been in that type of position for several years now. The second time an 8 seeds made the NBA Finals. Like a lot of fun storylines and a lot of good basketball to watch, man. It's been really fun, and I don't want it to be over. I'm sad that we're down to the last series of the year, and then we got to wait till October again for basketball to come back. But I think we're gonna have a really fun series with Miami and Denver. A lot of great players, two really great coaches with Spo and Michael Malone. So it's been fun. I've had a great time. You and I have watched a lot of games together too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the Heat and Denver as well. We had talked about this a few days prior to this recording. We're recording this one day before the finals. What month are we in again? May?
We're May.
Yeah, May 30th. Wait.
31st.
31st. May 31st, one day before the finals. We spoke about this, about how nobody was really picking Denver. I didn't pick Denver. And after that episode, I thought to myself, like, man, that wasn't a great pick. Like, I mean, Phoenix looked good at the time of the pick, but I was like, Denver really is a complete team. They know what they have, and they know what their mission is. And they just, swept the Timberwolves, had a little trouble with Phoenix, but we were able to finish that series off and then just swept the Lakers into the dust. So, yeah, Denver looks really good right now. And with Miami, after they beat the Bucks, I was like, then the Kings moved on, or the Knicks. And I was like, oh, Miami will beat the Knicks, no problem. And then I was like, oh, they'll have a little bit of trouble with the Celtics, but I think they can still win. And then that was a insane series. I can only imagine how you felt during that. But Miami finally made it. One standout from the playoffs in general, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. It seems like, what have we had, like 3 or 4 playoff coaches fired? And
yes.
I mean, look, I've never been in charge of an NBA team, and there are certain situations where I'm like, I kind of understand that. But for me, for like the Phoenix Suns firing, what was that, Monty Williams? That was a big shocker to me. I thought the Bucks firing Budenholzer was a bit of a surprise. Sixers firing Doc, I was kind of like 50-50 on that. Sorry, no offense to Doc, but yeah, I just wanted to get what did you have any thoughts about, like, a lot of these playoff coaches being fired?
Yeah, I would say starting with Doc, I do think that was fine. Doc has mostly underperformed as a coach in his career. Lost a lot of big games. Lost multiple series when he was up 3-2 or up 3-1.
Not a Game 7 coach.
No, not a Game 7 coach. That's for sure. And although it was obviously a very tough matchup with Boston for Philadelphia, you still had the MVP in Joel Embiid, and you still had James Harden, who was either really great or the worst player on the floor. You saw Tyrese Maxey. You had Tobias Harris, who Doc Rivers has just never been able to get the best out of Tobias Harris since he's been there. And that, let alone Jimmy Butler not being there after that whole scenario with them losing that Game 7 to Toronto a few years ago. And I definitely understand the Doc firing, and I think I support that. Of course, they just hired Nick Nurse, which it could go anyway. I'm not really sure. Very defensive-minded coach. No way they're going to play Embiid 45 minutes a game like Nick Nurse likes to do with his starters sometimes. He's a little like Tom Thibodeau-esque. He's like the younger version a little bit. But I understand the Doc firing. For Budenholzer, I do overall support his firing because of they have mostly also underperformed. The Bucks have. They of course did win a championship in 2021 over the Phoenix Suns, but before that, they've lost to Miami multiple times now. They did sweep Miami once, but two other times they have been absolutely embarrassed and dominated by the Miami Heat in the playoffs, which obviously Miami's a good team, but you have Giannis and you have Drew Holiday, you have Chris Middleton, you have Brook Lopez. You should be, they were one of the best defenses in basketball, and they couldn't stop Hemi Butler. You know, they couldn't stop Grimmy Butler from doing what he wanted to do. And a lack of playoff adjustments we saw from the Bucks, and they rolled right in with their regular season defense, which was very good. But when a team adjusts, you can't. They like to pack the paint, which is sometimes great. But when teams are shooting 50% from three consistently because they have wide open threes all game, you got to do something. You got to switch it up a little bit. When Giannis can't make a free throw and he can't get to the bucket, you got to do something, man. You've got playmakers on the team. So I understood that firing too.
And Budenholzer, I remember you said, what did he, challenge something 2 minutes into a game? Not the best with timeouts and challenges.
Yeah. He wasted a challenge in the first quarter in a win or go home game, and he probably could have used that at the very end of the game on a couple occasions. So that was not surprised about him. I was surprised about Monty Williams. The Suns do have a new owner, a relatively new owner, and of course they just acquired Kevin Durant. But Monty Williams is, I believe, the winningest coach over the last 2 seasons. He won a Coach of the Year, and that, at least in my opinion, that Phoenix team just didn't have the depth to go far anyways. Even if they got past Denver, I think the Lakers would have been a hard matchup for them. And I think Miami would have been a hard matchup for them too, when you're just fully reliant on Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, who were fantastic, by the way. It's not like these guys weren't playing well. Like they were both doing what they needed to do. They just got beat by a better, deeper team, But I would like to see a little more patience with a lot of these coaches. There was certainly patience with Doc Rivers, and there was patience with Budenholzer. And I think it was, I could see why they got let go. But Monty Williams only being there a couple of years. Of course, there were a couple of big blow-ups in the playoffs for him. I do recognize that. I do see that. Last season, getting absolutely smashed by the Dallas Mavericks in a winner-go-home game. This year, Denver beat them pretty handedly in their closeout game too. So, but Monty Williams seemed to be a fairly well-liked coach within the organization. The players seemed to be okay with him. With that Kevin Durant trade, of course, they lost 2 great players in Cam Johnson, and they lost Mikal Bridges as well. And Bridges was awesome this year for the Nets whenever he did get over there. So I would like to see more patience, though. Look at the 2 coaches that are in the NBA Finals. Eric Spoelstra has been, the head coach of the Miami Heat since, I believe, 2008. This is Mike Malone's 8th year, I believe, as the Denver Nuggets, and he's getting them to their first finals ever. And they play an absolutely awesome brand of basketball, and it works. And they build a great team around them. Some of it has to fall on the front office a lot of these times too. It's not just the coaches. I don't blame Monty Williams for not having much depth beyond 2 main guys. Of course, Ayton was a little wishy-washy. Chris Paul was injured, but then you're relying on Torrey Craig, and you're relying on your backup Australian big man, Jack Landale. There's better options for role players out there that the Suns can go get this summer, but they didn't even give Williams a chance, and I wish they did. But he might go to Detroit, and I think that'd be a great spot for Monty Williams.
Yeah, I agree with the patience. I mean, Spoelstra, he's been with not even just a coach. He's been with the Miami Heat organization for years. I think when we watched that Game 7, they showed him as a video camera operator or something like that. That's not what it was, but it was something close to that. So, and imagine if let's say, remember when Kevin Durant left the Warriors, and then there was injury trouble, and the Warriors were terrible. They were terrible for 2 or 3 years. Couldn't really get anything going. Imagine if they just went, well, Steve Kerr, you're out of here. They probably would not have won another championship. So I just think I'm really just thinking like just really similar to what you said, like Monty Williams, like, Chris Paul gets injured, that's bad luck. But you really had a great thing to build on. Kevin Durant is a good player, but hadn't played many games with the Suns before that. And so I really think, like, off season, give them time to recover, you get back for the regular season and whatnot. I really think they could have done something special with that. Now, I mean, Kevin Durant is still there, but I really don't think it was fair for them to just get rid of Monty Williams like that. So it almost seems like, hey, if you lose in the playoffs, fire your coach.
Pretty much, yeah. If you're not getting to a finals within 3 years of being hired, you're kind of done. It seems like
Yeah, now I think, I mean, they might not. Now, you said that Boston, that the Boston coach is a Mike Missoula.
Joe Mazzulla.
Joe Missoula, thank you. Uh, that Joe Missoula kind of saved his job. Personally, I would be surprised if he was still there. There was and I kept forgetting, I didn't get the chance to look this up. I know he admitted that there was some issues in the locker room. Him and the players weren't quite on the same message, um, and so I don't know. Personally, I think if they had been swept, he definitely would be done now. Now I do think there is a little bit more room for debate, but personally, I would be surprised if he wasn't gone here soon.
Yeah, the Mazzola situation is interesting because he was definitely going to get fired if they got swept or lost in five. I think there was absolutely no question about that. Um, but now that they took it to a game seven and they were, potentially just if Tatum didn't injure his ankle 20 seconds into the game, maybe they win that series. Maybe Tatum scores 40 or 45 and they go on to the finals again. Um, but for them to kind of lose their locker room this late in the season, especially after being down 3-2 to Philly and playing really well to end that series and move on, and then just being awful against Miami for those first three games. Um, I he was put into a very difficult situation, and of course, things didn't necessarily go Boston's way. But I don't know. I don't know if Joe Mazzulla was or still is ready for that job. And now there's rumors that he's going to lose about three assistant coaches to the Rockets because that's where Ime Udoka is the head coach of now down in Houston. And are you gonna roll the dice and say we're going to hire 3-4 new assistants for this guy, let them go through a training camp and see what happens? Um, there are times I believe that you should or should not be patient in the NBA. I'd say one of those times when you maybe should be a little impatient is when you have a window of opportunity to win a championship. And Missoula was for the most part pretty well outcoached against Miami, which it's Eric Spoelstra. He's one of arguably the best coach in the league. Understandable to a certain degree, but I mean it was pretty embarrassing there for a few games, and he got them to come out and play hard, but Boston's been close to a championship for several years now, and it's not often that you have more than a couple year window at most sometimes. And they've had a window of opportunity for about 4 years, 5 years now, it feels like. And that can close very quickly. Jaylen Brown's future is now uncertain with Boston. What about Al Horford? What about Marcus Smart? How are you going to rebuild if you don't have Jaylen Brown right next to Jason Tatum? Like, what's the plan there? And you don't want to lose this moment to maybe win an NBA championship. So I would imagine Brad Stevens is going to make the decision to fire him. I think that would maybe be in just the best for both parties, because I don't know that Joe Mazzulla is ready for this stage just yet. But coming back, forcing a game seven, very well may have given him an extra year of opportunity. But I am worried that window will close for Boston. It may be closed now. It's very possible.
Yeah, he could definitely use like a veteran assistant coach or something like that to give him just a little more cushion. One point I wanted to bring up quickly was that after he admitted that there was some issues between him and the players and their mindsets. In a way, I felt like that kind of helped them because now it's like, okay, it's all out there, no more secrets, no more misunderstanding. Like we've kind of maybe you haven't settled your differences, but at least everyone's aware of what everyone's thinking. That kind of gives you a new set of energy to kind of play a little bit more like freely and with a little bit more energy, which is what we saw with Boston.
Yeah.
Ultimately, personally, I mean, we'll never know. I definitely think Tatum hurting his ankle was not helpful. That obviously like ruined their chances a lot, but Boston was. I still think the Heat would have won had Tatum not hurt his ankle. Like, Boston there look a little stiff. There was that pressure of a game 7 at home, and one of the most intense fan bases and media bases is Boston. So not great free throw shooting either, or excuse me, 3-point shooting. So I don't know. I think like Miami kind of came out the more focused and ready for a game 7 team, and were able to kind of like refocus on what they were doing. And I like even with Tatum being hurt, I was like, okay, they can keep this close. They can, they've done really well to get to this point, and so right, like that just was a deflating performance at the end there for them.
Yeah, there were a lot of question marks about some of his rotations, of Mazzulla's rotations with his players. We didn't see any Blake Griffin whatsoever this series, and he in the regular season was a part of in limited time, of course, was a part of some of their best lineups. Even if he only played 8 to 12 minutes a game, they were productive minutes. And sometimes you just need a spark from a veteran player like a Blake Griffin who he can get you 10 minutes a game, maybe make a shot or two, maybe foul a couple guys, just bring a little something, bring back some life to the team. Sam Hauser, we saw practically nothing of him, and especially with the shooting woes of Boston for a majority of the series, you got one of your best shooters on the bench, and it's not the best defender in the world, but when you're shooting 20% from three, you got to do something. You don't want Marcus Smart jacking up threes all day or Al Horford, and that's kind of what Miami made him do, and it worked. It was game 7. Once they got down early, they were down double digits in the second quarter. You could see that they lost some of that focus that they had those previous couple of games. They were taking, especially with their 3-pointers, they were taking them very early in the shot clock often because they were leaving Marcus Smart open, or they were leaving Horford open. Jaylen Brown, of course, wasn't getting it done. He had 8 turnovers, and there was a lot of flack on Mazzulla about when he was taking timeouts, and it felt like he started before he was just not using timeouts like ever, and then towards the end of the series he was just using them sometimes at weird times. There was at one point the Celtics had in game 7, they had a fast break opportunity. It was a 2-on-2, and Mazzulla was like, no, we're going to take a timeout, and that's their bread and butter, man. Like even if they missed a shot, that whenever the Celtics played with pace, they played so much better. But he took just a really random timeout when they were up like 9-4, and it killed that momentum that they had right then. And just a lot of question marks with him. I wasn't very impressed with him throughout most of the season, even though they won 57 games. So I hope to see a change there by the start of next season.
Yeah. I agree with that. Sorry, I was like, oh, I have one more thing to add, and I'm like, nah, I don't. But yeah, congratulations though to the Miami Heat, and to you, Hunter Nisley, also Denver Nuggets
Thanks,
making their first ever appearance in the NBA Finals, which I didn't even know. I didn't know that until this year. But did you want to get into predictions for the NBA Finals?
Yeah, I can. We can get the predictions. What do you think, Brock? Give me your prediction. I want to hear what you have to say.
So I was thinking at first. I think I said a similar thing to you that like I've been with Miami, like after they beat the Bucks. I've been with Miami, doesn't feel right to turn my back on them now, but right now it just seems like I still think we can have a good series, but right now it just seems like Denver's really really the stronger team here. They've just looked so good throughout the whole playoffs. Um, my best prediction, I think we'll see some drama at the start. I think Miami might steal game one.
Ooh, okay.
Um, the they they're not happy about not sweeping, definitely, but they've been playing for a while. The Denver Nuggets, they swept the Lakers, and they've kind of just been resting up, and maybe they aren't as sharp as they were. And I think Miami's just kind of been in attack mode. They've been in survive mode since even before the playoffs started. They had to win in the play-in tournament. Stan Van Gundy said a similar thing about how the Bucks haven't played basketball for a bit. They've had a break, whereas Miami has just had to keep on keeping on. So I think we're going to see some drama. Game one, I have Miami taking it, but then I think that that'll cause Denver to really straighten their antennas forward or whatever they say. And I'm gonna say Denver gets their first championship in 6.
And 6.
That's what I can give you right there.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Brock. I'm pretty confident in Denver winning the series. I do agree they're just the better team right now. Of course, they're well rested, but you make a very great point about Miami's they've been playing and they're in that rhythm, which sometimes is very important. You can see that especially early in a series if a team's had 10 days off or they had a week off. Sometimes there's a little bit of rust to work out there, and it can take a game or two for that to really happen. Denver is not a great matchup for Miami. Of course, size-wise, Jokic is a very large man. He's big and tall and long and a lot of weight to him. He can just do whatever he wants. I don't see anybody slowing him down whatsoever. Something Miami really likes to do is go to their zone, especially when maybe their man defense isn't working out so great. And Denver is the best team in the NBA against the zone this year, so that it's not great for Miami there. I do think it's going to be fun, though. I think just Miami's been playing at such a high level the last month or so, and they're hot right now. Even with Jimmy maybe being a little hobbled with his ankle, they've just had their guys step up. Caleb Martin's been really good. Gabe Vincent's been pretty great. Duncan Robinson's been good. Bam Adebayo is either really, really good offensively, or you're going to see some of the worst offensive basketball you'll see from him. But Denver's really deep. Of course, MPJ's been awesome for them. Murray's been awesome for them, along with Jokic. Their role players are great. KCP, Bruce Brown, they've been really good too. I would love some Thomas Bryant minutes for the Denver Nuggets. I think he's a lot of fun. I think just a good stretch big for them. Aaron Gordon, of course, can't forget about Aaron Gordon. Just fits perfectly with them. And Jokic working out of the high post. There's a reason he's a 2-time MVP, and I think there's a reason that the Denver Nuggets are going to be champions this year. So I'm rolling with Nuggets, and I'd say 6 as well, maybe 5. We'll see if Miami can really push them, but I'm very confident that Denver's going to take it home.
But to be fair for Miami, I remember when they went to play the Bucks. That my first thought was also size. Giannis and Brook Lopez. I thought the whole thing was just going to be an oop fest, essentially, something like that. Like those guys getting to the rim and just dunking. Now, to be fair, Giannis did have some trouble with his back, but they still had Brook Lopez, so I still think a dependable player can do his job. But Miami was able to get through that, and again, Spoelstra been in this situation before, might be able to pull out some great coaching tricks to help Miami get through. I would, of course, like to see my guy Kevin Love, who I advocated for a lot. Also, Kevin Love, every time he's made the playoffs, he's gone to the finals, and that stayed true this year. That's good to see that. It's tough because I really want to see Jimmy get a championship. I think he really deserves it. But also it's Denver, this is their first ever finals. That building's going to be crazy. So, I mean, I'd love to see Jimmy get a ring, but I just think that there's a little bit too much star power, which, again, is that fair to say? Because the other teams Miami's gone up against, they also had star power. They couldn't get it done. But this just seems like Denver is just on another level right now. So that's the best I can say for the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, they're just solid across the board, man. Like, you never know. Maybe their first finals. Of course, Miami was in the finals in 2020. Maybe there's some finals jitters going on in Denver. They do have. I know KCP has a little bit of experience in the finals. I believe Jeff Green also has a little bit there as well. Um, but they're a good basketball team, and it's I've picked against Miami even as a fan, and all but their series against the Knicks. I was confident they would beat the Knicks, but I didn't think they would beat Boston. I didn't think they'd beat Milwaukee. I wasn't sure if they were going to beat Chicago in that second play-in game, man. So maybe me picking against them will be good for my sake because I would love to see Miami win. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I would love to see my man Duncan Robinson get a ring and Jimmy Butler get a ring.
One more ring for Udonis.
Yeah, another ring for UD. That would be really cool for him. That'd be a great way to send him out. It's going to be fun, though. We're going to see great basketball. We're going to see the adjustments that are going to be made are going to be really cool. I think Miami's going to throw a lot of different guys at Nikola Jokic just in hopes of, maybe somebody can temporarily slow him down, get 2 or 3 bad minutes out of him, and maybe they can take advantage of that. I think we're going to see Kevin Love this series, too. I think we're going to see some Kevin Love maybe matched up against Nikola Jokic, which doesn't fare well for Kevin Love, but he can stretch the floor, so you never know. But it'll be interesting to see what Miami does to make Jokic uncomfortable on defense, because with Jokic's limitations defensively, he's still relatively solid. He's in the right spots at the right time, fundamentally sound. He's not the most athletic guy out there, but he holds his own in pick and rolls and whatnot. So we'll see what Denver does with him. We'll see what Miami does to try to move him around a little bit. So that's why I think Kevin Love could play a big role because he can stretch the floor. Maybe get Jokic just to hang out somewhere else and open up that paint a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement. Fun series. I'm sticking Denver in 6. That's about all I had for the finals. Nisley, was there anything else you wanted to add?
That's about all I got. I hope we have a good series. I just want to see good basketball. Remember to appreciate the greatness of some of these guys too. Don't take it for granted, and just enjoy the hoops and have a good time.
Alrighty, well, this has been the Sports Lovers Podcast. We still have some older news next episodes, and there's a few things in the playoffs, some important topics that we didn't have time to get through this episode. We'll be sure to catch up with those. If there's anything you'd like to hear about, feel free to share it in the comments. And shout out Rutgers basketball. I had to bring it back.
Yes,
I just thought of that. But yeah, Nisley.
Speaking of Rutgers basketball.
Okay.
4-star point guard just decommitted from Rutgers basketball. Took an official visit to the Penn State Nittany Lions. So good things may be happening. So shout out Rutgers basketball, man. We'd love to see it.
So he didn't say where he was going to play?
Not yet.
He just decommitted.
He decommitted and came to take a peek at
Happy Valley, baby.
So at Happy Valley.
At the Bryce Jordan Center.
Coach Rhodes. Big time stuff happening there.
Exciting stuff. Well, that seems a fitting note to end on. I'm your host, Brock. This was Hunter Nisley. And this was Sports Lovers Podcast. Thank you for everyone who's still with us. Sorry about the extended absence. But hey, we're back, baby. And we're ready to do our thing.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Peace out, everybody.